Welcome to your 29th C++ tutorial. Today we're going to be taking a look at how we can pass an array through a function as a parameter. Now the best way for me to demonstrate this is by creating a function that will allow us to print out our array on the screen. So we're going to start off with that function right now, and since we are going to be printing something out, we know we won't need anything in return, so we can save some memory and we can go ahead and call this void. Now we'll give it a name which is going to be something detailed. We'll just call it print array because that's what we want it to do. We want it to print array, we'll just call it that. So that will be our print array function. Now we're going to pass two parameters through this. The first parameter is going to be our array parameter. It's going to allow us to select which array we want to pass through this function. So we're going to be using integer data, so we're going to specify that, and we're just going to write name of array, because we don't know what that name of the array is going to be right now. So can we just go ahead and leave it like this? It's going to know automatically that we were talking about an array? Of course not. How is it going to know that's an array? It looks like a variable to me. If you're just going to write the data type and then write something, it's going to assume it's a variable. So we're going to have to go ahead and we're just going to put the square braces right there. We're not going to write anything inside the braces because we don't know how big this array is going to be. We don't know how many elements are inside. We don't have an array built yet. So we're just going to write name of array and your two square braces just like that with the data type defined. Next, we're going to put the variable. So this parameter is going to be a variable, and this one's going to allow us to determine how big our array is, or let it input how big the array is so that our function can understand. So we're simply going to write integer again, and we're going to write size of array. Simple as that. And we are not going to be putting these square braces because this one actually is going to be a variable. So we have those two parameters right there, and they're going to allow us to pass whatever array we decide to make later on through this function. Now inside the function, we're going to make a for loop. Just like we saw before, the for loop is going to allow us to go through each element inside of our array and print it out on screen because that's what we want to do. So we're going to start up by writing for, and we see we need our three pieces of information inside of our braces right there. So the first one is going to be the initializer. And as I mentioned, when you're working with arrays, you're going to want to have your initializer set at 0. And the reason you want to do this is because it's just your first number or your first value inside of your array is 0. Your computers start counting at 0, they don't start counting at 1. So your first position is symbolized by 0, so you want your initializer to start counting at 0 because it's going to be calling upon positions inside of your array, and if you started at 1, you're going to miss the first thing inside of your array, and we don't want to do that. So first thing we're going to have in there is going to be x is equal to 0, and since we have not yet mentioned if x is an integer or float, we're going to call it an integer right now. You can call it an integer inside of the for loop. Next, we're going to put our condition, which is going to be when we stop. Now, we know that x is going to have to be less than something, but we don't know exactly what it has to be less than because we don't know what the size of this array is yet. We haven't built the array. We do, however, know that we have a parameter called size of array, and we can go ahead and use that. So size of array, we don't need to call this an integer because we already called it an integer before in the header of the function. And now we're going to have our increment, which is just going to be x plus plus, which means every time you pass through it, you're going to increase x by 1. Simple enough. So inside here, we're going to go ahead and we're going to be printing out our array. So go ahead and write cout like that. And now we know that the name of array is going to be whatever your array is going to be, right? We don't know what it is right now, but it's a parameter for whatever we decide our array is going to be. We can simply write name of array. And then in your square braces, you're going to put x. And then you're going to close it off just like that. And that will be our function for the void. Now what this means here is you're going to be passing in 0 to start off, and then you're going to be passing in 1, and then 2, and 3. When you have your array, whatever is in the box is what you're going to be calling upon. If you want to print something that's inside of your array, whatever is in the box that's made by your square braces is going to be the value, the position of the value that will be shown on screen. If you put 0 in here, the first value or first element inside of your array is going to be the one that's printed out. If you had 2, it would be the third one. Remember, because 0, 1, 2, the 2 is going to be the third position. So just remember that, make sure you don't get confused. Computers start counting at 0 is the one thing to remember. So we have our function all made right there. Now we need to go and prototype it. We have to go write it before our main because our main is not going to be able to know what we're talking about if the void function is all the way at the bottom down here, the void print array function. So we just go ahead and we're going to write the header. So simple enough, just copy everything before the body, including our parameters here, name of array, and then integer size of array. Just end it off and then put a semicolon at the end there. Simple enough. Now we're going to go ahead inside of our main and we can actually go ahead and make our array now. So let's go ahead and we pick what type of array we want to have. We're going to have an integer array, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to call this the lemming array, just to give it a different name rather than calling it array, because I don't want you guys to get it confused with what we called the parameters. So this one is actually going to be something. Now I'm going to say we're going to put 4 values inside of this array. We're going to be putting 2, 500, 200, and 5. So these are going to be the values inside of an array, and we're going to end that off with a semicolon. Remember, everything that you want to include inside of your array, you will be separating with a comma, and all that is inside your curly braces. So we have all that right there, and now it's time to go ahead and see if we can actually make this work. So let's go ahead and we're going to write the print array because we want to call upon the function we have. You do not need to write void now because we have prototyped it. You don't need to write it when you're calling upon it inside of the main. And you're going to have to put what the actual values inside of your brackets are, what the actual values are going to be that you're going to be passing in as the parameters down there. So now we can actually go ahead and we can write lemming because that's the name of the function. It's the name of the array, sorry. See, down here I said that we need to input whatever the name of the array is going to be. We just simply need to write lemming. It knows it's an array now, so you do not need to go ahead and put the square braces. You just need to write the name. The name is lemming. Simple enough. And now you have, what's the size of the array? Well, the size is simply 4, just like that. And now you'll see that if I go and I end that off with a semicolon and I can go ahead and build and run this, we're going to see that we're going to get our array printed out on screen. Right here, we see we have 2, 500, 200, and 5. Simple enough. And the way that this is, the reason we do this is because this will allow us to accommodate any array that we have. Let's say we made the turtle array, and this one had 7 values inside of it. Let's say it had 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 200, and 500. It's right there. So this one has 7 values inside of it. So let's say we all of a sudden, let's make sure it does have 7 values. Make sure it didn't, yeah, we have 7 values. Let's say that we just all of a sudden now instead we want to put turtle and we want to put 7 inside of it. Now, we can go ahead and press build and run here, and you're going to see that it's going to work as well. We're going to have this new one all printed up here, and it's saying that we haven't used lemming. We know we haven't used lemming. You don't need to tell me program. We have all that right there. So we see that having these parameters allow us to adapt this function for whatever circumstance we're going to have. We can use whatever array we want, and we can use whatever size of array we want. We just need to input that information inside of the main, and we just need to use those parameters when we're writing our function outside of the main. So if you guys understood, if you have any questions regarding how we can use arrays and how we can pass arrays through functions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I will answer as soon as possible. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll have more videos coming up soon.